United's first summer signing is done. Florentino Pérez pulls off a mega deal, and he's landing 2 top players in one go. Is Mason Greenwood heading to Serie A? And is João Cancelo set to stay at Barcelona? All this and much more in today's episode. Before we get into the news, do me a quick favor and hit that like button. It's the single most important thing you can do to help this channel grow and keep these videos coming. Done? Let's dive straight in. Remember, when Manchester United were absolutely desperate to get Mason Greenwood off the books, scrambling to bury the reputational carnage after that drawn-out legal nightmare, they shipped him off to France, crossed themselves, and got on with it. Case closed, or so it seemed. But it turns out the suits at Old Trafford have quietly learned to do business with a bit of flair, because now their disgraced Englishman might be about to hand them a very tidy windfall without ever setting foot near Manchester again. Here's how it shapes up. Greenwood has dragged his career back from the dead. Goals, form, the lot, and now Roma have come sniffing around. Italian insider Gianluca Di Marzio reckons the Romans have made him their #1 target. Marseille have already slapped a €50 million price tag on him. Massive money. But the French haven't got much choice. The club is drowning in debt, and UEFA are openly threatening to boot them out of European competition. Sell quickly or face the abyss. And that's exactly when the United hierarchy stepped back into the frame, with very satisfied expressions. When they sold Greenwood in the summer of 2024, they were smart enough to bake a sell-on clause into the contract. The exact figure is still being argued over, somewhere between 40 and 50%. The lawyers are apparently scrapping over whether United pocket their cut from the gross transfer fee, which would be an eye-watering €25 million, or only from Marseille's net profit on the deal. Even the worst-case scenario gets them around 10 million. Not bad at all for a player they'd completely written off. As for Marseille, don't expect any tearful farewells. Yes, Greenwood finished as the club's top scorer, but his sulky attitude and his frankly bone-idle approach to the job by the end of the season wore out both the fans and the press. Nobody needs another toxic eruption in the dressing room. Flogging a difficult genius for a ludicrous fee and dragging the club back from financial ruin, that's the dream outcome. Roma, meanwhile, have our sympathy. Dealing with a character like this is always a gamble. The only question is whether their luck holds. Florentino Pérez appears to have sniffed out the perfect moment for his favorite trick, walking off with a ready-made star and not paying a penny in transfer fees. The second Ibrahima Konate officially left Liverpool as a free agent, the Madrid radar lit up like a Christmas tree. For a while, Real were playing it cool. Absolutely no interest. Nothing to see here. Then Bayern and PSG emerged as genuine competition, and suddenly the white shirts were moving at remarkable speed. Spanish outlet AS reports the two parties are already putting the finishing touches on a 4+1 contract. The man pushing hardest for this deal is Real's new gaffer, Jose Mourinho. His return to the Bernabeu was already a headline in itself, but his demands in the transfer market haven't changed one bit. The special one has always had a thing for big, physically commanding centre-halves, and Konate is precisely that. Perez is delighted to oblige. Getting Mourinho's blessing for a free top-level defender is about as good as scouting gets. If Ibrahima makes it to the Spanish capital, Real can stop fretting about getting battered in the box. But one free transfer doesn't plug every gap, and Mourinho demands order in every single inch of the pitch. Real's right side of defense has been screaming for reinforcement. Trent Alexander-Arnold, whose high-profile move to Spain was billed as the transfer of the century, has spent more time with the physio staff than he has on the training pitch at the club. An endless series of muscle injuries turned his season into a medical drama, and the club ran out of patience rather swiftly. The solution? Found quickly, efficiently, and without a single tedious round of negotiations. Fabrizio Romano has confirmed it. Denzel Dumfries is heading to Real Madrid. The club didn't even attempt to haggle or grind Inter Milan down. They simply activated the release clause. 20 million euros. For a player with over 200 Serie A appearances and a nailed-on spot in the Netherlands squad, that is essentially daylight robbery. Dumfries is everything Trent is not. A powerful, relentless machine who'll run that flank into the ground without complaint. While other clubs are holding auctions and overpaying for dubious youngsters, Perez is quietly assembling Mourinho's squad at a considerable discount. 20 million for Dumfries. Zero transfer fee for Konate. And on the subject of people who love a freebie, I know some of you watch every single video but somehow can't bring yourselves to hit the like button. Are you scouting for Real Madrid or something? Stop lurking. Sign the free contract. Tap that like right now. Financial fair play in Madrid isn't something they study from a textbook. They write the rules themselves. And for now, the whole pragmatic machine is ticking along without a single hiccup. It seems the people running Barcelona have finally mastered the noble art of psychological pressure. Or they simply waited until the Saudi millions caved under the sheer force of João Cancelo's stubbornness. The Portuguese fullback flatly refused to go back to Riyadh and torched every bridge behind him. And it worked. Mundo Deportivo report that Al Hilal have blinked, agreeing to drop their asking price well below the original 15 million euros. Why the sudden generosity? It's straightforward enough. Cancelo effectively went on strike. He managed to fall out spectacularly with the club's hierarchy and with head coach Simone Inzaghi. Let's just say the atmosphere between them had long since become an uncomfortable silence. The Saudis had no appetite for welcoming a disruptive presence back on an enormous salary. Why invite a powder keg into the dressing room? Far easier to let him go to Hansi Flick at a knockdown price. Hovering in the background of this particular soap opera, naturally, is Jorge Mendes, the grand puppet master, riding to Barca's rescue once again. The super agent is practically living out of the Camp Nou offices at the moment, busily attempting to spin a whole web of parallel and deeply questionable deals, one of which involves offloading midfielder Marc Casado, surplus to Flick's requirements to Al Hilal, a friendly peace offering to soothe the bruised feelings of the Saudi hierarchy, presumably, but Mendes' most audacious maneuver is his attempt to push Darwin Núñez onto Barcelona. Yes, the Uruguayan whirlwind is apparently being seriously marketed as a budget alternative to the rather more polished Julian Alvarez. The very combination of Barca and budget is, of course, a delightful joke for anyone paying attention. But if the Alvarez deal falls apart, Mendes will make sure he doesn't leave empty-handed. And when that happens, brace yourselves. Camp Nou is in for a footballing spectacle of an entirely different and quite spectacular variety. Manchester United have somehow managed not to overpay 3 times over for yet another Serie A player. Brazilian midfielder Ederson from Atalanta is heading to Old Trafford for a mere 35 million quid. Fine, there's another 4 on top in add-ons. David Ornstein, the closest thing English football has to a profit, insists the deal is done. For a club with a long and distinguished history of throwing money at problems, this one almost looks like a bargain. The player himself wanted United badly enough that his club had little choice but to meet them somewhere sensible. Why do they need him? The answer's been staring everyone in the face for months. Casemiro is packing his bags and finally vacating the wage bill. Keeping an aging, increasingly sluggish legend on an eye-watering salary was simply no longer sustainable. Ederson has agreed to a relatively modest $75,000 a week by English standards. Sensible business. A contract through to 2030 strongly implies the club intend to get their money's worth out of him. For Michael Carrick, this is his first transfer as full-time boss, and the logic is hard to argue with. Carrick knows exactly what a functional midfield looks like. Ederson's main selling point isn't some flashy 40-yard heel flick. It's pure, concentrated physical presence, over 130 duels won, and a mountain of tackles across the season. The stats don't need any embellishment. He's a grafter who shows up and hoovers up the defensive midfield zone so thoroughly that someone else barely needs to bother. A quick aside for those of you who've watched every single video and still haven't hit subscribe, I see you. Stop being a secret fan. Hit subscribe and the bell, so you're first to know who this utterly chaotic club buys next. Think the window's done? Not even close. Fabrizio Romano is already signaling that Manuel Ugarte is on his way out, and United's brass are already looking for a midfield partner to sit alongside Ederson. Carrick is building something aggressive, combative, and young. The only question is whether this ambitious little project survives the first proper crisis at Old Trafford. We shall see.